Born entre dos mundos, americano and that of Spain. With your blonde hair and your blue eyes, it always seemed easy for you to pass and fly by. Me acuerdo de ti cada vez que sueño. I was born in Ecuador, and my mom is Peruvian and my dad is Spanish. And it's funny because Peru and Ecuador have like this, rivalry type relationship. But my mom was getting away from things and she went on vacation. And my dad was getting away from his life and he had moved to Ecuador. And he had bought in Guayaquil, he'd bought like these little chiringuitos by the ocean and made it into like a little resort type, hotel type getaway thing. And my mom was staying there and that's how they met. So they had a little love affair, and 9 months later, out came me. And but within less than 6 months of me being born, my dad was like, I gotta move back to Spain to really make a living. I can't really raise a family here. And it was funny because then my mom revealed to my dad that she had another son in Peru, and my dad was like, what? And so he was like, well, if we're gonna move to Spain, he should come with us. She was probably bipolar, and she was also bulimic, and she was an alcoholic. It must have been like 5. My dad wasn't around, he was on a business trip, and she got upset at my brother and decided to start beating him profusely. And this is like one of the earliest memories I have of this. And I looked at it and I was like, what was going on? And I was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm gonna tell Dad. And she grabbed an ashtray and just whipped it across the room, and it hit me and knocked me out. And then when I woke up, she was like, if you ever tell him, I'll kill you. She'd play these games that were just horrendous, and you never knew what was coming in the bipolar way. So she would tell you, can you please go get my lipstick? It's in my bag. And when my brother and I were living together, he'd always I'm gonna get it. And I never understood why he'd go and get it, but once he left, I understood. It was like a code, basically. She'd send you to go get something, and it was never there. And because it wasn't there, she'd tell you how stupid you were, how ignorant you were. Then she would get up and she'd find it wherever the hell she had put it, whatever it was. And then she'd beat you because you were so stupid. I think the most important book in my life was this one, Ningún lugar está lejos. In English, it's called There's No Such Place as Far Away. Ray, thank you for inviting me to your birthday party. Your house is thousands of miles away from mine, and I travel only for the best reasons. A party for Ray is the best, and I'm eager to be with you. And you see the journey that this bird goes through to get to her birthday party, and it's the symbolism of knowing that ningún lugar está lejos, no place is far enough, that my dad wanted to give to me when he left. He wanted me to know that no matter how far away he was, that he was always going to be there for me.
Maybe when she was 11 or 12, one moment when she was very depressed because, she couldn't understand what was going on. I'd left home. She took it very hard because I've never wanted to include my personal problems with her. And then she was getting depressed and so on. So I took her to the mirror and I said, look at yourself. And every morning when you wake up, you can say, I can do it. And she did it.
12, 13, 14, 15, those years were just really bad. Ended up in the hospital a couple times. My dad tried to take her to court. We failed first case because she's a great liar. She's like, no, she can't, she's fine, she lies. My daughter lies and she hurts her own self. I'd never hurt my daughter. And everyone knew that was happening. They knew it in the school. They knew that she was beating me. They knew it. They just knew, but no one could do anything. Because it's not like it is here in America. And we're talking, almost 20 years ago. So, people couldn't do anything. My dad really pushed, went to court actually to get me to go to school because I couldn't tell my mom I wanted to go to school in the States. And he had tested me when I was there, and it was obvious I had learning disabilities. And so he knew that that was my way out. He knew that that was what was going to help me get out of my situation. Otherwise, I think I'd be dead. Like, had my dad not pushed for me to leave this country, I think I would have ended up dead. It was really hard because he had to really go to court and fight for me, and my mom wouldn't let me go. And my dad arranged it so that I would meet privately with the judge because he knew that if she was in front and she was not about to let me, and she was like, no, I want to be here. And the judge was like, no, I need to meet with her privately. And he came up with a document, very smart man, that said that because of my learning disabilities, I needed to, and there was no programs in Spain, I needed to go to the States, and my grandmother would be taking care of me. It was really interesting to come live with my grandmother, who had raised 4 boys, who knew nothing about women or raising women. She's always worked with women, but never raised a young teenager. And my grandmother is this ultra-feminist who refuses to cook because she says the man should be doing the cooking. So that's how she is. She's this incredible woman who flew planes during World War II, and she was a spy, and then she worked with civil rights, and then she got her master's in social work. And living with her was just incredible because I was able to have a mom, like a real mom.
The prettiest woman. We love you and honor you and cherish you.
So question, does your dad's cell phone end with 2459?
Creo que sí. ¿Por qué te llama?
Pops, calling me.
Hello? So one of the things of coming here to America is that I used to speak with an accent. I used to speak like this a little, not so much, but enough. So it was hard sometimes when I was speaking for people to understand me. And I went to international school where you did learn English, and so I did learn English. I knew English, but I didn't speak it like I speak it now. And I have a pretty strong ear, so I really worked on accent reduction and really trying to get rid of it. And I don't necessarily have an accent. I mean, there's certain words that really just come out in my accent's just very predominant, and I can't help it. But like anything, like literally, I can't say the L-Y. That's tough words to say like that. It still comes out. If I have a couple of glasses of wine, sometimes my accent comes out again. And it's a blessing and it's not. It's a blessing because here in America, when you have an accent, either you're eroticized or you're discriminated against. It's one or the other. So as a woman, I know I would be eroticized. All my friends are like male friends. Oh, that would be so sexy. Why don't you actually talk with your accent again, like Penelope Cruz? And I was like, no. The problem is, the blessing in disguise is that people don't realize I'm not from here. So they expect me to understand all these colloquialisms, and they expect me to understand all these things and culture and all these stuff. And so people will talk about certain cultural things, and I'll be like, hey, no clue. and they're like, how do you not know that? And I was like, I didn't grow up here.
You know, there's a lot of issues of race and a lot of issues in regards to the way things have been legislated, laws that are in place that sort of target a certain group, being a productive member of society, and to still be looked upon as if you are, less than, just based on your appearance still. It's something that doesn't sit very well with me. And there's still so many barriers, I think.
I know I get judged because I'm a Latina, and I know Rilling gets judged because he's black, despite what we've achieved in life, despite the education that we have. I get upset because I talk to people, and people are like, oh, why do immigrants want to come to this country all the time? Why don't they stay in their own country? And I'm like, you have no idea what it's like for people in their own countries. I'm like, you have no clue what people are going through in their own countries. Right. And yeah, my brother's set. He's got a job. His wife has a job. They rent an apartment. But in Spain,
working hard.
Yeah. But for example, she works as an administrative assistant. He works as a teacher. And together they don't make more than $25,000 a year.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, and they'll never own in Spain. It just will never happen. They'll never own unless they inherit their home from either my father or her parents. Just recently, we've been talking about the Arizona bill, and it's just it just aggravates me. And it's like, really? And then you're looking at different places like here on the East Coast, like, oh, they wouldn't do that. But there's certain counties that are starting to do that.
There's copycat legislation that's popping up in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And that's, that's right next door.
Up in Massachusetts.
And,
like,
it's something that we can't stand for that, because the face of illegal immigration, it isn't Polish, it isn't Russian, it's Latino.
I teach speech at Borough Manhattan Community College. And right after one of my speech classes, I was telling my students that I was going to go protest. And they were like, really? Why are you going to protest? Mind you, all my students at BMCC are predominantly Latino or African American. Then we started dialoguing about the bill. And some of them were actually inspired to go and come and protest. And I was like, yeah.
I used to travel once a year of Thanksgiving to visit her when she was living in Miami. And that sort of changed in the past 2 years because of the economic situation. I've been having personal economic problems, and I can't afford to come that often, okay? So every year we'd meet up, and then I'd try to bring her over in the summer to spend about a couple of weeks or with me. And then this year it's been almost 2 years since I hadn't seen her. So our physical contact's once a year in theory. I'd like to go back into that if possible. Now the advantage of the crisis is that the airplane rates go down a lot, so flights are cheaper.
So cute. Where is she? Is she a rescue?
Yeah, I got it from North Shore.
They always from North Shore too. All the North Shore dogs look alike.
And there's so many of them, and they're wonderful.
How old is she?
She's 2.5.
So, what's her name?
Nala?
This is Layla.
Hello, Layla.
She's on the squirrel next.
Squirrel. That's all she wants, squirrels.
Sometimes I'm just like, I just want to get home to my dog and my cat. That's all I want to get home is to both of them. And does it cause problems when I date? Yes.
Yes,
it does.
that's us.
But it happens. And I just can't help it. Like at the end of the day, I live my life and I don't have my family here. They're all, they're not here. My grandma lives in LA, but everyone else is in Spain. So I don't get to go home very often. Like last time I was home was 2007. So, and that was now 3 years. So for me, it's just crucial to be able to have
A family.
A family.
I do not want to be forgotten.
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 I do not want to be forgotten. I do not want to. I do not want to be forgotten.
I'm also directed over 30 productions with my students. When I was teaching in Miami, a lot of my work centered a lot of social justice. Most of the plays that we did pick also looked at social justice or historical issues. Every year in February, we put predominantly a Black playwright and a Black topic. So one of the things I would do with my students was I would work with them in giving them the historical knowledge first. And a lot of my students didn't know who the Black Panthers were. So everyone from the designers to, because I had my students design, I had my students do costumes, we would spend 2 weeks historically looking and learning into the civil rights movement. We had no money, no funding, no nothing. And we fundraised and we did our own, we had to create a theater culture in the school. We had to fight sports teams and the privilege that sports teams get, and we had to get credit, and we did. It took 3 years, but we started winning awards. I remember our first year we went to the Florida Theater Conference, and I was sitting next to one of my students, and we're watching these schools in Florida that have amazing theater programs, because theater's huge there. And one of my students turns to me and he's like, Sicre, there's no way we're ever gonna win. I mean, there was this one school that in 2 minutes, 50 kids come in and assembled a house. And I was like, you know what? I was like, it's not always about the glamour and the fuss. They were like, Sicre, they're gonna win. And then when we won, our set was 2 crates and ribbons.
When I called her, she was teaching in Florida. And when I mentioned who I was, there was this moment where she screamed, because she'd been working on a rehearsal. And so she screams to her kids who were in the room, the students at her high school, everyone be quiet, it's NYU! And all of a sudden there was silence, because for Daphne to come here was as important for the young people she was working with. They were so proud of her, and the amount of the congratulatory, comments on the networking pages and things about them believing in themselves because Daphne believed in herself and saw herself as a PhD candidate.
I want to look at the history of Afro-Latino performance.
Fantastic.
And what's been, produced. So I have a book that looks at the last, looks from like the 1800s to 1940s.
Great.
And so I'm trying to find a book that fills in from the 40s,
Filling the gap.
So I'm working on my dissertation. I had lots of ideas coming here, but I always knew I wanted to look at race in education, theater and in theater. It's a look at Afro-Latino performance and how it's a representation of what's going on in society today and the relationships between Latinos and Blacks and how I believe the Afro-Latino is a link to get Latinos and Blacks to work together towards a progress and towards a world with less racism and less discrimination.
More and more people of color are coming into higher education, getting master's degrees, PhDs, professional degrees, and it's a reflection of our society. The numbers are reflecting the increasing numbers of people of color in this country, and that's important because we can't sit in a place where, only white people are teaching a diverse population.
Getting to know Daphne and the obstacles that she's been faced with from early on in life and growing up, and it's hard to see many people be able to come through that and still be confident enough to go after the things that they want. And she could be a very different person, and a lot of people haven't gone through the things that she has probably would. And it's it's these things where people have told her like you're not good enough or you're not smart enough or you couldn't possibly do this, that, or the other thing, but and it hurts her, and it's
I cry.
yeah, and she cries and and she's sad, but she keeps going.
I want to get a career. That's why I'm 34 and I'm not married. Because I want a career. If I was in Spain, I would have been 24 and married with already 3 kids probably. Most of my friends in Spain already have 2, 3, 4 kids, and that's normal. But I want a career. I want an education. I want to get this PhD. I really do. I really want that. I get the question of like, oh, well, Spain's such a wonderful country. I'm like, yes, Spain's a lovely country. But as a woman, I would not be able to do what I'm doing right now.
Wow. Yeah.
It's impossible. I would never get the opportunities to become a professor. Really? And teach theater? Impossible. It'll never, ever, ever happen. Wow. Because the academics, the way it's set up, the way the country. But as a woman, here in the States, I'm able to get my PhD. I'm able to be a professor. Of course I critique this country. Of course there's things I want to fix in this country. This country's not perfect. But at the end of the day, as a woman, I can change things here. As a woman, I can educate myself and I can educate other women. I can create opportunities here that hopefully will go back to where I come from and change things. Hopefully I can influence people that will make change elsewhere. I can't do that in Spain.